Let's create some patchwork that can be turned also into parquet if using wood texture. So the script has to start with an empty workspace, and now I'm going to be starting the script. And once it creates a blank canvas, it prompts me to open the papers or images or textures basically and reactivate the blank image before continuing. So what I'm going to do, instead of opening images that are on my computer, I'm just going to create some new ones. So I will use an image about 2000 pixels by 2000 pixels. And I will flood fill it with a wood pattern that I have. I'm going to actually use two patterns that are kind of similar in colors. So I'm going to use this one. And I know that this is a little too small for the canvas, so I don't want to have a seam visible. And I'm going to flood fill this one. I'm going to create another one. Same size. This time I'm going to use this one. And I know from experience that it tends to take pieces horizontally. So if my grain is vertical, I'm just going to rotate my image to have horizontal grain. So I'm going to use those two images, and then I reactivate my blank image simply by clicking on the top and making sure it is the one that is active, and I can see in the layers palette that the active image is the blank one, and I can continue the script now. I have 5 options, and I'm going to use, let's say, the log cabin, and I could use each of the textures randomly, but I think it will look better if it has a repeated pattern. And since it is wood, I think a bevel would probably be appropriate. And you can see how the script is actually using each piece alternately to create a pattern that makes sense. And this is how I get my wood pattern. If I change my mind, I can also undo this. So Control Z. So I'm going back to the blank image, and I will restart the script at this step, and I can choose a different pattern. Again, I want to have it repeated and with a bevel. And with the design I got, you can notice that some of the pieces are extending below or on the side of the image, but the script has made them absolutely seamless. So now what I can do, I can use this tile and flood fill a larger image. Let's say I want to use a full-size scrap page. I can go into my materials palette under the patterns tab and selecting all, I go to the first one, which is image 1. You can see here image 1, and I'll just keep at 100% scale, and I can flood fill, and you can see that there is no seam. Everything is perfectly seamless. What I can do also, let's undo this, and I can use a 45-degree angle for this pattern and I get a chevron pattern that is again perfectly seamless. This is how I can use it with wood or any other heavy material or texture like wood, metal, stone, and so on. Now let's see how we can do it with paper. So again, I'm going to start my script. It creates the blank image and prompts me to open images. I'm going to open some scrapbook papers. And some of them have patterns. Let's open 4 of them. So they have some patterns, some small textures and designs. So I'm expecting it to look like a patchwork. So again, I'm reactivating my blank image and continue. Let's use the square basket pattern. And again, I'd like to have the repeated design. And this time I won't add a bevel because if they are paper or fabric, a bevel would not be appropriate. So I want no bevel. And there you have some patchwork. Let's see how it would look if I was to use a different pattern. Let's see the double herringbone. Again, repeated, no bevel. And I'm done. Of course, if this was paper or mostly fabric, I could add some stitching. So if I have a brush tip with a stitching, I can go down and I have some basic stitching. And maybe I can use like this chain stitching. This is quite large. I'm going to reduce that. And I'm going to use a white color. And of course, I'm going to add my stitching on a separate layer. I'm just going to extend a little bit so I don't catch the edges. And zooming in enough, I'm simply going to go and click on one end of that edge. I can see the seam, and holding the shift key, I continue here. So I can repeat this for every straight line I have. Now that I'm done with the horizontal stitching, I will rotate, here it is rotation, my brush to 90 degrees, and as you can see, it changes the angle. So again, I will continue adding some stitching along the edges. And there's another one here. And I continue all the way. When you're done with the stitching along all the edges, you can add a slight inner bevel on your stitching. And possibly a slight drop shadow also to give it some thickness, something small. And now you have a patchwork made of fabric. So it's now your turn to create various kinds of patchwork using different types of texture or images with this script and PaintShop Pro. Have fun!